Hello, everyone, and warm welcome to the Matchbook Horse Racing Podcast, where, as it feels like I say every month, it's a Cheltenham special. But I said that last month, and I get to say it again now because we're back at Prestbury Park. And well, we're not for obvious reasons, but the horses are 3 excellent days there for the November meeting. Pleased to say I'm joined by a very strong team in the form of ITV Racing's Adele Mulrennan, Racing TV in the Sunday Times is Donn McClean, and at theraces.com's Declan Rix. Hope we're all very well. If you are looking for anything on Friday or Saturday, bear in mind we're going to be starting with Sunday here. So we're going to be working in reverse order. The feature essentially is the Greatwood Handicap Hurdle. That takes place on Sunday. We're looking at 2 races on Sunday. We've then got 4 races on Saturday. And then we're going to give you a Friday best bet as well. We're doing this on Thursday evening, so not a lot of time to get stuck into Friday, but we're working backwards if you like. And there are timestamps if you're watching us on YouTube or listening to the podcast. So we are going to launch into Sunday. Before we do, though, just because it was a point that Declan Rix had raised on our WhatsApp group we had about the weather and the amount of rain that could be around, is there a sort of a worsening condition graph you're working on, Rixie, as far as conditions are going to be at Cheltenham this weekend?
Who bloody knows? As we saw at the October meeting there, they started on lovely good ground, and by the Saturday came when Frodon was running, and after that it was it looked like a bit of a quagmire. So yeah, look, I think it's something that we're going to have to play by ear, to be honest. We'll see how it all pans out. But like I've heard people kind of refer to Cheltenham Racecourse, and Cheltenham have its own kind of microclimate. So, you know, whether all the rain that's forecast falls is another thing. So, yeah, unfortunately, I'm not really good to you there. I think we're just going to all have to play it by ear.
So we're obviously studying all 3 days before we start off on the first day. I sort of felt that I had to just work on generically soft ground, because if I'm giving selections for now, does anyone differ from that, Adele or Donn, in any way?
No, I think that's a fair assumption, Tom. At this stage, there's probably, I mean, it's officially good to soft at the moment. There's rain forecast, so it's probably going to get it'll probably be softer as the weekend goes on. And as Declan said, I mean, you remember this meeting in the past. By the time Greatwood Hurdle Day comes along on the Sunday, it can get quite. If there's any bit of rain at all, and they've 3 days racing on it at this time of the year, there's no drying out. So, yeah, I'd say. It's probably a fair assumption to think that it's going to get worse as the weekend goes on, and possibly by Sunday it could be quite testing indeed.
And we might see horses, if it is like that, coming up using that stand side route and going the widest way around, which they often do. The first race that we're going to look at is the Shloer Chase, which I think that's a non-alcoholic beverage, but it always makes you feel like you've had an alcoholic beverage when you say it. So it's a bit of a head wreck. The Shloer Chase is a good one, though, Adele, this time round. That's at 2:25 on Sunday. We get to see last year's winner back in the form of Defy de Searle. We get to see a horse in Rouge Vif that won a handicap very impressively last time we saw him at Cheltenham. Adele, where are you looking in the Shloer?
Well, put the kettle on. Usually I don't get to go racing very often and just enjoy myself. And last year I was one of the finalists for the Richard Davies Award. So I was down at Cheltenham last year when she won. So I had a day off and you didn't have to do any tipping. But of course, word got round that I'm a little bit of a tipster. So everyone was annoying me, and I tipped, put the kettle on, and she won. So had a few pats on the back. Didn't come home with a Richard Davies Award, but I come home with a few congratulations on tipping a winner. And then I followed her then, and she's so gutsy, she's so game, she's still lightly race. She's got a weight advantage in the race as well. And I think she loves Cheltenham. She's 2 from 2 there. Aidan gets on with her really well, and I just think she can run a big race. I'm gonna take her onto a pose.
She is round about 3.0. So she's half a point shorter than Defy de Searle currently. She's rated inferior, but as Adele says, she's getting a bit of weight as well. If you can pick up off that, Donn, because I'm interested in what you thought of the Arkle as a race last year and how that form stands up for you.
Yeah, I thought her performance was underrated, Tom, in winning it. I backed Fakir Duderis in the race, and after the race, I thought if he jumped the second last better, he would have won it. He made, if you remember, he made quite a bad mistake on the second last fence. But actually looking at the race again, she was going away from him again, going to the line. Like, she was strong. And her jumping through that Arkle was very, very good. And the time was good. I think it was nearly 2 seconds faster than the Champion Chase. And okay, she was carrying less weight, but and they run on different days. But the ground was estimated to be quite similar and almost identical on the 2 days, first and second day. So her time was very good. She did it well. She probably won with a little bit of hand. And interestingly, she was a 16-to-1 shot, as Adele knows. Great pick. She was way off my radar on Arkle Day, that's for sure. But she'd run over 2.5 miles through the summer, and probably because she was maybe a summer horse, maybe she was underrated going into the race. But they dropped her back down to 2 miles, and one of the main reasons for dropping her back down was because the owners were going to, just chatting to Henry de Bromhead during the week there, the owners were going to Cheltenham, and they said, look, should put her in it. And that was the Arkle trial day, this meeting last year, this race last year. That was her first run over fences over 2 miles, and she was dynamite. And then she went back to the Arkle and did the same again. So yeah, and she's only 6. She's only a 6-year-old. She's still lightly raced over fences. And as Adele says, she gets the mare's allowance. So she's got, I think she's rated a stone inferior to Defi Desoy, but she gets the £3 and then the £7 mare's allowance. So actually, even on ratings, she doesn't have that much to find. And she was a bigger price in the early part of the week. But yeah, I think she could really put it up to Rouge Vif and Defi Desoy. Look, it's a cracking race to have the three of them. You have Defi Desoy, who probably has to bounce back a little bit from this Champion Chase run, and Rouge Vif, who was so impressive in winning at the October meeting, and he shaped like a potential Champion Chase horse that day. So it's a hell of a race between the three of them. But yeah, I think Put the Kettle On is a likeable mare. I think there's more to come from it this season as well.
So you're with Put the Kettle On as well. I think part of that 16-to-1 was the fact that Henry had the favourite as well for the race last year, and that's often the second string is often built into that price sometimes, isn't it? So maybe that's why she went off that sort of price, but she won on perhaps similar sort of grounds to which she's going to encounter on Sunday afternoon. Rixie, who's it for you?
Look, I think at the moment this is a very hard race to call for a couple of reasons, kind of tactically, and what the ground is going to do. You know, softening ground is definitely going to be against Rouge Vif. So Royal, it doesn't look like he's going to run, so maybe we can take him out. You know, Put the Kettle On, we were told before the Arkle last year, she was a good ground horse as well, and then she ended up winning on soft. So from that kind of dynamic, it's a little bit tough. And from a tactical point of view, I think it's tough as well. I think on paper, potentially Put the Kettle On could get an easy lead out in front. But Riders on the Storm is a horse who has tanked his way through a lot of races, and basically, you know, you could have put Arnold Schwarzenegger on him. You know, he wasn't going to hold this horse. When this horse starts to tank, he goes. So he could maybe end up disturbing Put the Kettle On as well if he tanks, because it's going to be his first run in 248 days. He's probably going to be fresh and well. So I think it's a very hard race to call. But if I had to go with one now, I'd probably maybe just side with Put the Kettle On, just on the basis that she was ready to run a couple of weeks back and she was a non-runner. Henry de Bromhead played it safe with the ground. I think it was good ground to go on that day, and they just wanted it, have her not have a tough race on quick ground to start the season. So yeah, I would have a tentative vote for her at the moment. So we'll see where we go. But just to kind of, I can touch on the Arkle quickly. I want to have an open mind about the Arkle last year, because in some respects, I think the race fell apart in terms of Notebook and Cashback and other horses. But then the first two in the Arkle came miles clear of the rest, which kind of 9 times out of 10 when reading for me would suggest is good. But I think the soft ground just made it a brutal test on the day. So I don't know, but the one thing I would say about Put the Kettle On, I went back and watched it. She idled the whole way up that run, and I think she had a lot more left in the tank than it seemed on the day. So I think for a tentative vote at the moment, I'd probably just go with that. Put the Kettle On.
And I am quite worried to say that I'm going against all three of you, and I do like Defi as a play now, because I can just see him going off at the head of the betting. He's 3.5, as I say. She's 3.0. I'm quite happy to count out Rouge Vif if it does get testing. And also, I'm not fully convinced. It was a very good performance last time, and Harry Whittington's horses are flying along nicely. I'm still not convinced he can make it into a Grade 1 horse personally. And I think you're going to have to be to win this contest, or it's a Grade 2, because you're trying to beat a Grade 1 horse in the form of Defi Desoy, and also the Arkle winner in the form of Put the Kettle On. I think if it is genuine soft ground, and potentially worse than that come Sunday, I think Declan could well go off at the top of the betting, and I'm surprised he's 3.5. So I would go with him. And they couldn't find a reason as to why he ran such an abhorrent race in the Champion Chase. Built the Champion Chase for ages.
But where do you how do you rationalize that? Because they couldn't find anything wrong with him. It just was a too bad to be true run. Therefore, and that's his last run, so that's obviously factored into his odds.
Yeah, I'd say he
definitely
had an dose of coronavirus. I'd say, did he? That must have. That's what happened.
A few of Philip's horses ran poorly at that sort of time, and I just wonder. It's a bit like the Tizard horses as well. We're going to come to one of those in the form of Slate House. I'm going to talk about later on. So I don't know. And then obviously very disappointing.
And then obviously Sizing John, who ran yesterday, disappointed as well, and disappointed again yesterday. And this is all going to come off the back of probably having the best summer ever, going to Martinstown, where they're looked after unbelievably well. So, yeah.
This is Sporting John, the Novice Chaser, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, what did I say? Yeah, Sporting John was disappointing yesterday. And obviously the two of those horses had disappointing runs at Cheltenham. So, it's a pickle, isn't it?
It was hugely disappointing, but I can see him going off Fav, and I think it could be worth just having a little nibble early, particularly if it's suggesting, times are suggesting, etc., that it's going to get quite testing. So there you go. The three of you will flatten me. That's what normally happens. So there we are. Let's move on to the Greatwood hurdle. I found this the hardest race that we were going through. I'd love to have a strong opinion on it, but goodness me, I think it's really, really tough. It's always tough for obvious reasons, but I found it difficult. And we as a panel, while Declan was sorting out his computer, decided that he should lead off on this conversation. So Greatwood hurdle, take it away, Rixie.
Cheers to that. Look, as you would expect, it looks very competitive. At the start of the week, having gone through all the form, I was keen on Dan Skelton's Prashima, but he's a horse I'd be worried about if the ground got very, very soft. So I'm probably going against him now, having looked at the forecast. But I do think there is one potentially overpriced here, and he represents the Nichols yard, and it's not going to be the one you think. but I actually like Sir Psycho in this race. I think he's one of the more fairly handicapped horses in the race. He ran in the Triumph last year. He ran well. He was one of many horses who were going to be beaten a street if Goshen stayed up, but he's a likeable horse, this guy. And if you go back and watch his run at Chepstow at the start of the year, Jesus, he shaped a hell of a lot better than the distance beaten. He looked a little bit rusty to me early, but he got better and better as the race progressed. His jumping got better and better as the race progressed. And he was beaten by T Clipper that day, who was a favourite for another handicap at Cheltenham later in the week. And he maybe comes with a little bit of a danger mark because he stopped so quick at a time when Nichols' horses were running very well. But I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. What price is he actually, Tom, Sir Psycho?
26.0.
Yeah. To me, that's big. And
I think you'll be able to. He's the sort of horse that you can, on the exchange on the day, I think you could be pricing up on that as well.
Well, he could be an absolutely unbelievable bet to lay, because this is a race to my eye that doesn't have a lot of pace in it, and he's a horse who likes to get on with it, and he jumps well. The Nichols horses are going very well. I hear Brian Carver's going to ride him again, so he's going to take even more weight off his back. And I actually think he's just as well as handicapped as the other Nichols horse, Time White, who's taken up a much bigger chunk of the market to the head of the race. I thought he got clobbered too much for his win at Chepstow the last day. Time White, visually he looked stunning, but I think he got put up 11 pounds, and I thought that was harsh, and I didn't think it was a great race. So I'm hoping Harry Cobden's made the wrong call here. So yeah, I think Sir Psycho is the value play in the race. And if I was just to give a mention to another one, it would be John Joe O'Neill's Tejerac, who landed a gamble over this course and distance at the October meeting. He was pretty good now, to be fair to him. So I'd have those two against the field. Probably Tejerac is the more solid horse because he comes into the race in much better form. But at the price, I'm going to have to back Sir Psycho in the hope that he just blew up the last day and there's much more to come.
Yeah, Tedrak landed a massive gamble. Win and place, I'm assuming, with Sissoko as well at 26.0. And as well, Rixie says you might be able to trade out in the run as well, because he might be one of those up there on the speed. Adele, anything at fancy prices like Rixie, or are you looking a bit further towards the top of the market?
No, I've got one at a big price. I was kind of having a look through Prescreamer because we won at Wetherby, and I was there, and just thought it was quite interesting that they have changed the riding tactics and have kind of ridden him further back, held up in rear last time at Wetherby, and made up quite a bit of ground to finish second. But I just thought they might be wanting to step them up in trip. That's maybe why they're riding him so far off the pace. Just was going to see how they ride him at Cheltenham, just to see. But that's what I thought. I just thought maybe they're going to step him up in trip. He's been beaten favourite a couple of times. So I've gone against him, and I went for Hunter's Call. But then the ground, of course, might change. All his wins have been on good to soft. So then I wasn't sure whether to go for Main Fact again. But they're both big prices, so you could go place on both of them. Who Main Fact loves soft ground. All these 5 last wins have been on soft, heavy going.
Yeah, I mean, Main Fact I thought was fascinating for a team that are doing well. The team are in good nick, the Pipe Yard, and he's around about 8.0, and Hunter's Call's a big old price, 17.0, and again, you might be able to price up a little bit on that. That's for Aidan Coleman and Ollie Murphy. He's good at targeting these sorts of races as well, Ollie Murphy. He's landed a few of them, and the ground shouldn't be a problem. Don, who do you like?
Yeah, like Prescreamer was definitely on a list. Like but I take it, Adele's point is probably right. He stayed well on the flat. I remember him running in Northumberland Plate not this year, last year, like so a year and a half ago, and he came from the rear and stayed on really well to get close enough to who there is wins. He was the only horse who was able to get into the race from the rear, so that was a big run. But that's over 2 miles on the flat. So and yeah, holding him up over 2 miles, I'd say the ground should be okay. It didn't run badly on soft ground at Wetherby last time, or a couple of runs ago. So I'd say the ground should be okay, but just might be a wee bit worried that 2 miles over hurdles would be on the sharp side for him. But then on Sunday, like Greatwood hurdles, as we were saying at the top of the show, if the rain does get into it, they can turn into real wars of attrition. But I do like Time White. They take Declan's point that he's got £11 for his chefs to win, but he was really, really impressive. I know that's on different ground, but he's got form on soft ground as well. And he's just a lightly raced horse. He's a 4-year-old. Paul Nicholls is dynamite with 4-year-olds in the Greatwood Hurdle. And he did say directly after the Chepstow race that the Greatwood Hurdle was the race for him. That's where he was going next. And you kind of like that, especially with a trainer like Paul Nicholls, where he nominates a race directly afterwards and gets his horse there. Yeah, the £11 is not ideal, but he was keen that day. He raced keenly throughout. He didn't wear his hood, and he wore a hood his last couple of runs last season. I'd be surprised if they don't put a hood back on him, and he could improve again for that. He's progressive anyway. The time he clocked at Chepstow was good. And as you were saying, Declan, he did it so easily that he did it like a horse who's got plenty more to come. That was his first run since March, since he ran in the Fred Winter and didn't run badly there. So, yeah, I think there's a lot to like about him. And kind of after the race, he was a 10-1 shot. He's still an 8-1 shot. So he's not that much shorter than he was directly after the Chepstow race. So, yeah, and it looks like Harry Cupboard's going to ride him as well.
Yeah, one of a couple in the race for Paul Nicholls. They've both gone up. I'm a tentative Prescreamer fan. Exactly what Adele said about I thought the horse would step up in trip. And if you look at Dan Skelton's comments about him, they're in his stable tour, they're not exactly glowing, which I was sort of surprised about. He sort of said, yeah, he ran all right the other day. We might step him up in trip and look for something ever a bit further. And then here he is vying for favouritism for a Greatwood hurdle. But I did like the way he went through the race, and I think Animal is a proper tool as well, who came out and won a novice handicap chase over fences. So I think that's potentially some of the best form going. I don't know if Dan Skelton was just playing it down. I'm not sure. I always had in mind as a soft ground horse when he was on flat. And I will have a.
Do you think him being held up at Wetherby was the Skeltons being a bit shrewd, because they are a very shrewd outfit? I don't mean that in a negative way, but you don't want to go and win there and have an extra £6 or £7, do you, coming here? So I thought it was kind of job done, to be honest, the way they rode him that day in terms of handicap marks.
And he'd also had a long time off, so I wonder if they were just trying to look after him from that point of view. Adele, what do you think about that with Prescreamer? I
wasn't quite sure really. All them factors kind of take into mind. I thought they were going to step him up in trip next time out. So I just thought they would maybe ride him a little bit as if you were going to, you know, if you ride one to kind of get a trip for the first time, you would kind of drop them out and ride them quite quietly. I kind of got a feeling like they were going to step him up in trip next time out, which was why I was quite surprised to see him in this. Like you said, I had a look through his stable tours and I thought he wasn't quite as excited as what kind of I thought he was. Well, I liked him last year when I seen him at Wetherby. So bit of a tricky one, I have to say. Like I said, I think he's one to just watch, I think, on Sunday and see what they do with him.
7.0, maybe he's not one to... I'll have a go because I should be more disciplined. I'm not. It's the Greatwood hurdle, but he'd be my sort of loose selection. Before we kick on, Don, do you want to say hello to Mr. Peacock?
Yeah, Doug. Doug was my... Yeah, we used to get together Cheltenham festivals and Cheltenham November meetings down through the years. We stayed in the same house over in Willersley. So yeah, great guy, Doug. So big shout out to Doug. Pity we can't be there this year.
He's Adele's new best mate, right? You and Doug,
Yeah, I was looking, I was thinking it's not for me. I thought it was for me, if it wasn't, it was for Don.
Hi Doug, that was Doug getting in touch with Don through Adele. Love that. And those rare bits sound delicious.
Good thing that's actually a person. I thought it was a euphemism there for a second.
Okay, Mr. Peacock. I hadn't really thought about that, yeah. Don doesn't display. Right. Let's definitely move on to Saturday's November Novices Chase. This is the 140. God, this is a good race. I'm looking forward to this. Go on, Don, kick us off.
Yeah, look, Fusil Raffles, he has to be favourite, and he is. He was a very exciting juvenile hurdler. Obviously, he won the Adonis hurdle really impressively. Then missed Cheltenham, then went to Punchestown and won the Grade 1 4-year-old hurdle there. I suppose you have to put a line through last season for him. It just didn't happen for him. But this season he got the job done at Uttoxeter. But I thought the last time at Cheltenham he was very, very good. His jumping was superb. He didn't miss a fence. He was fast and fluent over his fences, and it was on good ground. But he maybe the softening ground is a bit of a worry for him because his good hurdling form was on good ground as well. Like the Punchestown run was nearly good ground, just on the easy side of good when he beat Fakir Duderi. So very soft ground might be a bit of a worry for him. But
can you hear me, Don?
I think we lost Don.
No.
Don's paused. Talking about to pick up on Fusil Raffles, and we'll get Don back. He's 2.25, Rixie. I think if there's one absolute weapon on the day, even at the whole meeting, it could be him. But my enthusiasm is ever so slightly tempered by something I can't quite. Maybe it's his history of disappointing sometimes on the big stage.
Yeah, to be fair, if there is maybe like a horse you could see going off, we don't know what's going to happen. If there's a horse here that you could see going off maybe third or fourth favourite behind Shishkin in an Arkle, I think it is this lad. He's been very good the last twice. At Uttoxeter the first day, he clearly blew up and he still managed to win. And then the second day at Cheltenham, he was absolutely dynamite. And the same day that he won was actually was the day Fusil Raffles, or not Fusil Raffles, was the day Rouge Vif won. And his time in his sectional stood up very well to him. And Rouge Vif is now a horse that we're talking about potentially going for a champion chase. So, yeah, look, there's plenty to like about him as a horse. And he jumps well. And, he's got a good man riding him and a good man training him. The only thing I would say is he's carrying a penalty. And softening of the ground, I think, would be against him. And I have a funny feeling that's why he's been out this early. It's because... this is maybe going to be a race. They're going to run him here and maybe put him away and come back maybe in February if the ground is decent enough. Maybe he might have a similar campaign to what Put the Kettle did on last year, to be honest. So I just think it's interesting. A horse of his ability is already going to be have run 3 times by November, and I think that's probably ground related.
Yeah, he also runs in those shin guards all the time because he cut his legs so badly at Kempton once, which is why he missed his Cheltenham engagement the year before last. And then he always wears them now in his races. He's looked very good over fences. I know I wouldn't back him to 2.25. I wouldn't lay him either personally, and I couldn't find another bet in the race. Adele, about you?
I actually quite like Eldorado Allen. He was obviously held in high regards last season. Picked up a bit of an injury, and sometimes the injuries, I know it's not nice to get them, but sometimes they can be a little bit of a blessing and just give them a little bit of time to mature. Beat a good mare of Port Nichols' last time out at Newton Abbot on return. Just was looking through some of Tizard's stable tours, and he holds this horse in massive regards, has him noted as an Arkle horse. So just at the prices, I always like to look for a little bit more value, and that's where I would be looking.
Yeah, interesting. He's 4.5 currently. And
just giving a little bit of the penalty with Fusel Raffles. I know Darryl Jacobs really looking forward to teaming up again with him, but just given there is obviously doubts with the ground and then with the penalty. So I just like to look for a little bit more value. And that's where I like to look. I think he's a horse that's got a lot of talent. He jumps really well. And I think he's definitely one to watch for the rest of the season anyway.
Yeah, I hear that. When there was a point last season where he looked as though he could make it into or the year before last, into one of the top novices. So we'll see how he goes on his second start. If Fences 4.5 is a bit of value against Fusil Raffles. Don, did pick up where you left off. Do you see Fusil Raffles as a bet, or is it a watching brief for you?
No, he's the horse that you want to back, isn't he? Like he looks like the best horse in the race. The ground's a little bit of a worry, so it's probably a watching one for now. But the way that he jumped and the time that he clocked the last day was so impressive. He's a horse that you want to keep on side. Just a bit of not a concern, but it's interesting that Nicky Henderson has said that he wants to step him up in trip. You're kind of thinking maybe that's because he has Shishkin as his Arkle horse, and this fella is going to be his Morris Chaser's JLT horse, isn't it? I think that's like if Shishkin wasn't in his yard, I think Fusil Raffles would be his Arkle horse, no question.
I'd love to see Siskin in an Arkle, but he's
unlikely.
Yeah. Well, he's gone a stud now, hasn't he? So it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Who's laughing now?
Exactly. So when Eldorado Allen wins, Adele, you can give out on the WhatsApp group just loads of abuse, just the fact that we're all sitting on the fence. And
the horse who will handle the ground is Kel Destan. He'll like as a hurdler. The performance he put up in winning the hurdle race, the Grade 3 race at this meeting last year on heavy ground was really, really good. Sorry, it wasn't at this meeting, it was at the October meeting on heavy ground. He beat Soviet Pimpernel and Torpillo and gave them weight. He carried a penalty. So he'd be interesting in making his debut over Fences, but I think he'd want to be very good to beat Fusil Raffles.
Yeah, I put him up in the Greatwood last year, so and it didn't work out brilliantly, but there you go. Let's move on to our the Paddy Power Gold Cup, the 2:15 on Saturday. I'll just kick us off with this one, if you don't mind, with Slate House, who I thought was going to win the race last year, came down the hill swinging and then put Robbie Power on the floor. And maybe he doesn't jump well enough to win a race like this because he has had those sorts of problems before. He went wrong in the Cotswold Chase, and then he ran no sort of race, nor did Copperhead in the RSA last year. He's a horse, I think, to catch fresh, and I think he's well worth a go at nearing double figures here. I'm surprised he's that sort of price. I was originally looking for a horse that had a run. I think the last four winners all had a run coming into this, but I think Slater, I couldn't believe the price he was. So he's, I think, only £4 higher than last year. So he's a pretty strong bet finally for me on the day, Slate House. Rixie, what about you?
Yeah, this is a good race. I would just say we've got ASO, Simply the Best, Sire de Lac, Pinson de Ray, Cool Cody. These are all horses who like to get on with things. So this looks like it's going to be a proper race, a good test of jumping and galloping. So yeah, look, I like Simply the Bet, but I just thought he got clobbered too much for winning that race at the Cheltenham Festival, to be honest. Happy Diva was second. She's a wonderful mare, and obviously she won this race last year. But we know a lot about her, and I just thought the handicapper went a little bit overboard with Simply the Bets. Mr. Fisher, I think of the market leaders, is probably the best handicapped horse, but he's a horse who's probably he's gonna want the rain to stay away. So I was just going through the race. I think the value bet in here, and kind of just looking at my own ratings and stuff, that the best handicapped horse in this race is Spirit of the Games for me, but that's kind of with the proviso of we know a lot about him, and there's up and young and coming chasers who have a scope to improve past him. But if for every reason they fluff their lines, I think this lad is handicapped to go well. The rain would be a worry for him, but it's maybe not going to be too much of an excuse because he has run plenty of good races, including at Cheltenham on quite soft ground. So yeah, look, I'm really interested in him. He's got a big swing of the weights with Simply the Bets when they clashed in the plate at Cheltenham. And if you just go back and watch the replay of that race, that was one of those like the festival of 2020 will be known for. No, I won't say that. It will be known for that, what I was going to say, and known for all the false starts. This was another race that was just had a standing start again. And if you go back and watch it, Spirit of the Games must have been 15 lengths behind jumping the second fence. So I thought to finish within 5 lengths of Simply the Bets, having given him such a huge head start. Now he's got a big swing in the weights. I just thought he was definitely overpriced in this race. So I'm quite keen on him.
He's 15.0. He was pulled up in this race last year and then came back in December and nearly won at 40-1. And there would have been plenty with their head in their hands in some ways had they deserted him. And he won, but he didn't quite get there. Adele, whereabouts are you looking in this? I
thought this was a tricky race, and these are the kind of races I would always have a place bet in. Look for something that's quite popular at a bigger price, which would take me to Happy Diva. I know she won the race last year. She's had a pipe opener at Wetherby. My only worry is that I think she would be the first horse to make it back-to-back wins in the race since 1994. So obviously it's not been done for a while. But like I said, I just like to go for. She's got good form figures at Cheltenham. She likes it there. So you're going to get a run for your money, which is what I always look for in these kind of competitive races. I think she got an £8 pull with her fellow rival Simply the Bets, who beat her at the Cheltenham Festival. So I just thought, go for something that runs well there at a big price.
Yeah,
I think she'll be quite popular for a place on Saturday.
13.0. She just holds her form so well, doesn't she? And in the place market, you sort of know what you're going to get as well, like you say. So Happy Diva, last year's winner. I'm going to use that stat since 90. Can I just nick that stat? Is that all right?
Yeah. I can't remember what the horse was, though.
Bradbury Star, I think. Bradbury Star.
Who was it, Don?
That's it, yeah.
Bradbury Star, yeah.
Right, I'm writing all this down. Lovely.
You're going to look like an absolute judge on Saturday now.
Well, exactly. Don, what about you?
No Bradbury Star here. I've kind of oscillated between Simply the Bets and Mr. Fisher. They're both horses that you'd love for this race. But I think Simply the Bets just had a look at both their races at the festival. And I know he's got a fair whack, but he won with plenty in hand. Like, he got in tight to the final fence, and Happy Diva actually passed him and looked like she was going to go on and win it. And like as Adele says, she's a fantastic mare and won this race last year. Just and loves Cheltenham and goes well on soft ground. So she's got plenty in her favour. But you're kind of looking for a horse who's going to improve, and he's off 157, so it's a high mark. And in order to win a Paddy Power off 157, you have to have a few pounds in hand. So you're looking at a horse who's potentially in the low 160s at least. But I think he could be, like, he's only run 5 times over fences. He's won 4 of them, and he kept on progressing last year. Like the time form chase that he won at the January meeting, that was a really good run. He beat Imperial Aura, and on the slopes was back in third, and both of them have obviously gone on and enhanced the form since, for all that on the slopes probably used up a lot of energy to get up into the firing line. But he won that race well, and then that win took him outside of the 145 bracket for the March, or not the March chase, the old Close Brothers, the one that is no more, the race that's gone now, the Novices Handicap. So then he had to run in the plate, and he went and won that as well. So he just keeps on improving. He'll handle soft ground. We know he goes up track. I know he's only a 9-2 shot or a 5-1 shot, but it's like the light of Spirit of the Games. I backed Spirit of the Games last year, Declan, and he ran no race. So I can see him running a race again this year, and he's been in better form since. But I just think we're getting to know where his level is, whereas the likes of Mr. Fisher and Simply the Bets, and even Saint Sonnet, or Sansonnet, whatever way you pronounce it, they're the horse. And I know they're the 3 horses that occupy the first 3 places in the market, but you just think they're one of those 3 is going to progress enough to have enough in hand to go and win it. Whereas, look, it's a high-class race, and the exposed horses are very good, but I just think those three could improve beyond it, and Simply the Best is the more likely of, or the most likely of the three, I think, to do that.
It's probably worth mentioning, actually, just, Donn makes a good point that the Spirit of the Games, he was terrible in this race last year. But remember last year at the October meeting, there was fence. The third last was out because the ground was so waterlogged. And then obviously we had a very wet week leading up to that, the meeting last year as well. I think it was totally different ground to what we're going to maybe get this week. Even if we do get another little bit of rain, I don't think it's going to be as soft as it was in the race last year. So I just thought that was maybe worth mentioning. Donn McClean, we'll see on Saturday who's got the best horse. Anyway, cheers for picking a favourite. Anyway, cheers, Donn.
He's 6.0 currently, Simply the Best, who was seriously good at the festival
games,
last year.
Actually?
15.0.
Okay, well, John's horses are going to absolutely bolt up. My lad's going to pull up again, so we'll see how it goes.
You can claim a win if yours gets a place, Rix. You can claim a win.
I'll claim a winner if he goes off 8s.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you beat the market.
Yeah.
Let's kick on to the listed handicap hurdle card. It gets tough now with these two hurdle races. This is the listed handicap hurdle, the 250 on Saturday, over 3 miles for this. I'll give you an idea of the market. T-Clipper heads the betting currently around about 4.0, 6.5 for Dandy Dan for a yard that are flying along at the moment. Adele is 9.0. My selection, the first time visor, Golan Fortune, I'll get that early, is 9.0 with Sam Lee back on board for Phil Middleton, who's a right shrewdy. And I think it's interesting they changed the headgear on Golan Fortune, and he should get his ground as well. So I was pleased to see him that sort of price. I'd play in the place market as well. Adele, take it away.
Well, I can see why T-Clipper is ahead of the betting, and quite impressive, winning the silver trophy at Chepstow in October. It kind of looked like he needed every yard of the trip that day, so I think it's a positive that he's stepping up in trip. I don't know if you noticed when he jumps quite high. He spends a bit of time in the air. I don't think it'll be long before he starts going over fences. I think the longer trip might just help him kind of improve on his hurdle technique and just kind of help him get into a bit more of a rhythm. It's not very often I kind of stick with a favourite, but I do quite like him. He's obviously got quite a lot of talent, and he jumps well. I think the step up in triple suit. I just had one I think's been well supported. I just had as a bit of a place as a B bet was Dandy Dan, who made a promising return this season. That was after 310 days off. Had a wind operation as well prior to that. I think he picked up a bit of an injury, which probably had him longer out than I'd say what they probably thought he was going to have. Just thought was one for a bit of a place bet, but I think he's shortened up, hasn't it?
Yeah, he's
probably too short now.
Yeah, since Dex came out, he's shortened up a good bit. So 6.5 now. So he's basically second in. But look, it's a big enough field if you want to have two on side, right?
Yeah, I thought he might drift out again. I don't know. See where the money kind of comes on the day. But I just thought it was a promising return after a wind operation, and I don't think we've seen the best of him yet. He was obviously unseated at Cheltenham last season. So I just thought his return back, I thought, was a promising start, and just want to maybe follow for the rest of the season. And
his yard are just in such good nick at the moment, Kim Bailey's yard. T-Clipper main selection there then at 4.0. Don?
I'm with you on Golan Fortune, Tom.
Look out.
Yeah, look out. You know where he's going to finish. Yeah, I just he won the race last year. He's only £2 higher now than he was last year. And last year, his first run at the October meeting was a poor run. He stepped forward from that to win it. This year he's had 2 runs this season. Again, he was well beaten at the October meeting, but last time at Aintree, he was very good, wasn't he? Like he kind of got into a bit of traffic on towards the inside, and he wasn't really hampered as such, but you just couldn't get out. And once Stanley took him out to the near side and asked him to pick up, he stayed on going to the line. The first 4 were clear. He wasn't beaten far by, you know what I mean, Harry. And you'd imagine that the stronger stamina test would suit him better. Back at Cheltenham, which he loves. Back with the change of headgear is interesting. You're kind of waiting because he didn't wear any headgear in his first run back. He wore cheek pieces like he always does at Aintree. But the visor for the first time is interesting, and I think the softening ground is going to play right into his favour as well.
Can I ask you about it? So he had the cheap pieces on. They went on for his win in this race last year. Why did he run at Aintree? I know that sounds silly, but why didn't they go for the same prep? He ran in the same race in October at this meeting before coming here, and then he showed up at Aintree, and I thought that with the cheap pieces back on, that's my only niggling doubt. The reason he's not a stronger play for me, because he's back 7 days later, almost as if Aintree was the target, and this is, I don't know. What do you have any thoughts on that?
Maybe they were getting him qualified for the Pretense, run him in a Pretense qualifier early in the season, and then kick on. But it is a worry, and I share your concern, because if this was a target, you'd find another Pretense qualifier somewhere along the way that wasn't a week before what the race that he won last year, and therefore the race that should be his target again this year. It's a worry, but he ran well there, and I think ran well in circumstances that weren't his optimum. Whereas he could, as long as the rain comes, he could have optimum conditions, and he remains a potentially well-handicapped horse, I think.
I definitely think he does. He qualified for the Pretemps now, as you say, but he doesn't necessarily need to go up anymore to get into that race. Interesting one, but I do like that explanation of the Pretemps. Rixie, over to you.
I had two against the field here, and one of them was golden as well, to be honest. So, I think he's obviously a horse who stays very well, and I think he's only £2 higher when he won this race last year. But last year's ground was very, very soft. I think he's going to need every drop of rain, and I think he's maybe going to need a good positive ride from Sam Lee as well. So look, I've got a lot of time for goal on Future Fortune as well. I would just say, like, I'm going to have egg on my face now here, but I'm dead against T Clipper in this race. And I actually think he's nearly worth laying. I just think he's a poor price, not because he's not a good horse. He was very good at Chepstow. He was very good. But the only thing I would say is he travelled so strong through that race. He really did. And if he travels as strongly through that race as he did here, he won't get home, I don't think. He'll need to settle a little bit better. And look, I know it was his first run of the season. It might have just been a little bit of freshness. And for him to travel as well as he did and still win the Silver Trophy as well as he did, it clearly shows that he's got a big engine. But I don't see a lot of pace in this race. And there was a bit of pace in the Silver Trophy. And if he gets a run on Johnny Burke, and the ground is softening as well, I think that rain is against him as well. I just think he could potentially pull this chance away, and then it opens the whole race up. So I already mentioned one. The other horse I would give a positive mention to is actually on the blind side. And I never thought I'd be putting up a horse like on the blind side for a Cheltenham handicap. But he ran very well on his seasonal debut last year behind Vindication over Fences. But he's never a horse who's really convinced me over Fences. He's never a horse really that's kind of convinced anyway. And early in his novice hurl career, he looked like he was going to potentially be a Henderson star, but he hasn't gone on. But look, with the Henderson team in such good order and him proving that he can run well fresh, I think a mark of 145 is pretty fair. And look, there's a lot of horses in here who we know a hell of a lot about. He's not as highly tried as some of them. So I thought I'm going to have two against the field on the blind side and goal and fortune. I'd probably be back in both each way or in the win and place market. So that's how I'm going to attack this race.
13.0 for on the blind side. I've got, unfortunately, mentioned 9.0. And so Don goes after Declan, and then Declan goes after Adele. So that's how it works, is it? That's how. So now Adele can throw it on to me and go after me for one of them as well. I love it. We can't all agree on the Match of Betting podcast. That'd just be boring. And normally we put up about 10 different horses in each race. So there you go. Let's move on to the intermediate handicap hurdle. This is tough. The 325. Does anyone have a strong opinion on this race? Raise a hand if so. There you go. It's tough, isn't it? Tough. Go on, Don, because you remained so still during that, you can kick us off.
It's like when the teacher says anybody and you don't know the answer. That's when you say still.
Yeah. Yes.
No, I was thinking that What's Up With You is an interesting horse, but potentially stepped up in trip. I was the run the last day at Cheltenham behind Captain Tomcat, he like Captain Tomcat got out in front and kept on and quickened up well and stayed on well. He was impressive, but he got £6 for that, which you can argue is not too harsh. But I just thought, what's up with you? Stayed on well. He only finished 7th in the end, but he wasn't beaten far by him. He's a point-to-point winner, and he was really well backed in the Leamington Hurl at Warwick last year. But I think he burst that day, and he ran well as well at Kempton at the meeting after the Cheltenham Festival, when again 2 miles 5 at Kempton, it just looked on the sharp side for him. So it's kind of thinking he'd be an interesting horse stepping up in trip. Is 2 miles 5 at Cheltenham, is that going to be a sufficient test for him? It depends on the ground, I guess, but he's just a likely racehorse that could go forward. And look, Captain Tomcat is favourite, and you can understand why. But his three wins have been on good ground, so back on soft ground for him, that's a little bit of an unknown. Whereas, what's up with you? You'd think that the softening ground should at least put Stowen into the equation, and that should suit him. I just think he's an interesting horse at 10 or 12 to 1.
He was on my short list of about 6, but he was definitely on there as well. Adele?
I thought Killian Leonard gave Captain Tomcat a great ride, and I think he's well worth his £7 allowance. Watching the race again today, like I said, I think he gave him a great ride. He kind of just sat on the girths of the leader, happy to just kind of sit there and let him find a rhythm. And then once he turned for home, he was keen to put some daylight between him and his rivals. He's been in great form this season. That was a competitive race that day as well, and he won easily. Of course, he's gone up. Like I said, I think Killian's worth his £7 allowance. He clearly gets on very well with the horse. I think a repeat performance of that. I just wasn't sure pace-wise. I know Shinobi can go forwards. Top of the Cotswolds can go forward as well. So I was just kind of wondering, will he get the same kind of easy lead in front with just one to follow. I'm not quite sure how the pace was going to be, but clearly likes a nice good gallop to aim at, and I think that performance puts him as one to beat.
Captain Tomcat is right at the top of the betting, only just though 4.0 under Killian Leonard for Dr. Richard Newland, back at the scene, course and distance of his last success. I'm going to take a flyer on Stimulating Song, tongue-tied for the first time, who's 13.0, probably mainly in the place market, to be honest. I just think the horse is crying out for a step up in trip. He got that at Kempton in the Silver Trophy last year, but Fabulous absolutely took that race apart. And I also think he didn't seem to want to go that way round either. I think he's going to be better going back round this way. He's had a couple of starts already this year, last time in a handicap keeping on. So I thought he was a fair price for all that. It wouldn't surprise me if there's something better treated in the race. But I think he's unexposed at the trip, which is what makes Stimulating Song interesting. Rixie?
Yeah, I was with Stimulating Song as well, to be honest. Look, it's a hard race to have a concrete opinion on. But I think I did like what Captain Tomcat did the other day under Killian Leonard, or as Barty called him mid-race, Killian Leopard, which I thought was quite good. I just thought the last day when he won, that they went a little bit hard early that day, but then kind of as the race went on, they just slowed it. Like as Adele says, it was a very good ride by Killian. I'm just not sure he's going to get the same kind of pace advantage here. You've got Capage, top of the Cotswolds, and Shinobi. They are other horses who like to get on with things here. So whether he can be as good off a stronger gallop remains to be seen. And yeah, look, I was the same as you, Tom. I just thought Stimulating Song wanted to step up and trip. He ran a good race behind Dear Sire the last day at Chepstow. That race was running a good time that day, and he's a lovely big horse, this guy. And for a big horse, he jumps hurdles quite well, and he got outpaced at the bottom of the straight, and he stayed on. So yeah, look, it's a hard race, I think, to have a concrete opinion on, but yeah, I thought Stimulating Song was the one to go with as well.
I'm going to take that as a compliment, Rixie. Great stuff.
And the other thing with that as well is he's going to be ridden by Paddy Brennan, and if the ground does get pretty soft at Cheltenham, Paddy rides this track well when it gets soft because they all go out wide. So I think that could be something to look out for. It was amazing last year how many jockeys went down the inside rail on the hurdles track when it was near heavy ground. They might as well have been running in soup, to be honest. So yeah, we'll see.
Paddy exploits that.
Go wide. Paddy Brennan goes wider. Nobody goes wider than Paddy Brennan.
Paddy stops for a drink in the Guinness Village and then carries on. That's how wide he goes. So that's Saturday done. Friday now, we're just going to give you a best bet on the day. And I also just want to throw this out there. Is anyone going to be supporting Tiger? What do we think, Don, we're going to see from Tiger Roll?
I think a lot depends on the ground, Tom. If it's just good to soft ground, then like he should run his race. Look, he has to give away buckets of weight. Well, he only has to give 4 pounds to Easy Land, but he's got to give loads of weight away to everything else. And it's interesting that it's a handicap. Like these, I think the conditions of these cross-country races change, don't they? Because the November one...
Yeah, it switched around, didn't it?
Be a handicap, for sure. And they changed that, so it's a conditions race, and that's correct. It should be a championship race. But I think they changed the December and November ones as well, didn't they? I think that the November one used to be conditions, and the December was a handicap.
But what I'm getting at is, what do you think Gordon Elliott wants to see from Tiger Roll? I suppose that does he really care? Is this all about March then April, or does he really care what happens here? Do you think?
Oh no, it's about March and April. Yeah, no, it's about March and April. But you want to see him running well, and you wouldn't want him to have a hard race on soft ground either. And if it's soft ground, I'd say soft ground. You can, Robbie Power is just gonna. He's not gonna have a desperately hard race that's going to impact his season for sure. So you'd want it to be good ground. I want him to have a good run. Like he loves the track, and he's it'll be great to see him again. He's a phenomenon. But yeah, I wouldn't, especially if the ground is soft. I'd be just taking a watching brief.
Does anybody want to add to that before we get stuck into Friday, the actual bet on Friday? Don't have to.
I just thought maybe, with all due respect to Robbie Power, we know he's a good rider, but I thought Keith Donoghue was probably, him not riding was probably a little bit of a negative, just because they got on so well around this course. So it'll be interesting to see. But I think all you want to see with him is just make sure he enjoys himself and he comes back safe and well. And it's just a building block for what's to come in March and then hopefully April.
He won't be coming out of stalls this time, so that'll be you probably understand what's going a little bit better this time. All right, Friday bets then. One horse for Friday. Adele Mulrennan, kick us off.
I'm going to go in the cross-country chase. I'm going to go Easy Land. I love Tiger Roll. He's such a household name, but being beat by Easy Land by 17 lengths there kind of stands me as the horse to beat really in that race. I just want to give a little mention though to Little Bruce. If anyone follows Phil Kirby's social media, you might have seen Tommy Dowson put up a video of him on the head cam. They schooled him over the cross-country course. He's got loads of credentials to win a race like this Sphere. Unfortunately, he's up against the big guns on the day, but he is one to follow for the season. He does always kind of win a night. He stays all day long. He jumps. He's really nimble. He's really athletic. Probably about the size of Tiger Roll. He won the North Yorkshire Grand National, the Cambridgeshire National. So he's definitely a horse, to watch for the season. He's up against it on Friday, so I'm going to go with Easy Land. But I just wanted to note Little Bruce, who's a massive prize and one to watch for the rest of the season.
Phil Kirby's brilliant, and he's got a few runners at Newcastle, so I don't know if he will be driving Little Bruce down, but he quite often does that on the big trips. He just drives the horse down himself, doesn't he?
He does. He's really hands-on. You barely ever get to get him for an interview because he's always leading up. But they're big family yard, and he's doing really well. His horses are in good form as well.
Easy Land 1.91 against Tiger Roll, but if I had to side with one, I'd be with that horse as opposed to Tiger Roll. Rixie, who's your Friday bet?
Look, nothing too fancy with me. I just think if you want to back a winner tomorrow, I think Dan Skelton's Protectorate will win the Novice Chase. He's been a serious work in progress, this horse. I think Dan and his team have done really well. He reminds me a little of Surname, who was, just a complete runaway. He probably wasn't as bad as Surname, to be fair, because he actually has put some runs together over hurdles, but he was just being far too keen to ever do himself justice over hurdles. But I take all you guys saw his chase start at Carlisle a couple of weeks ago. Like, how good was that? That this fella looks like he's made for this game. He's obviously owned by some high profile men with Sir Alex Ferguson, I think, and Jed Mason, all these guys. And I think, he's just been bought for the future, and the future is chasing. And I was so impressed with what he did, and in some ways I was actually I was keen to see if they'd run him over 2 miles against Fusel Raffles and that, because I thought he could be that good. I could just see him jumping this lot into the ground and hopefully winning. So he's got to give a little bit of weight away to Mossy Fenn, which won't be easy. But I'll be a little bit disappointed after what we saw Carlisle if he doesn't win this race, to be honest.
My choice was between Protectorate and On the Slopes, and I went with On the Slopes, but I echo everything you said about Protectorate. But I'll go with On the Slopes in the preceding race. Protectorate, incidentally, 2.25. On the Slopes, around about 4.0. Based on that form last time, obviously was no match for Rouge Vif, but tried to sort of keep tabs on him for much of the race. I think paid the price for it, will take a step forward for the run, and that form from the back end of last year is very, very strong. So he'd be my selection in that preceding handicap chase. Don?
Yeah, I'm taking you on, Tom. I was between On the Slopes and Beat the Judge. I just think at a bigger price, Beat the Judge is more interesting. He was in that race as well. Like you're right about On the Slopes. He'll come on for that run. He was weak in the market beforehand as well. But I like the way Beat the Judge stayed on. I mean, he'd been impressive in beating Ballywood the time before that at Fontwell. And last time at Cheltenham, he was like jumping the third last. He was well back, and he kept on well. He jumped the second last, not far off it, and he stayed on up the hill to finish third behind Rouge Vif. A little bit worried if the ground is very soft, but he was actually taken out of a race early in the summer because of soft ground. But he didn't run badly in the county hurdle last year on soft ground. So I think he might get away with softish ground, especially on the Friday. And I just think he's a well handicapped horse with potential for more. He's only run 4 times over fences, so loads of scope to improve again.
And he was hammered in the betting last time as well in what looked a competitive little race. 7.0. Yeah, 7.0 tomorrow currently for Beat the Judge. Those are our bets on Friday, and we now get to give you some weekend best bets. And I'm not going to kick us off because I'm still not sure. Go on, Rix, you can lead off again.
I'm going to take a flyer on Sir Psycho in the hope that the last day was just a classic case of him blowing up, because he really did shape, I thought, like the likely winner in between the final 2 flights. I think kind of just going off my own ratings, which, usually are probably garbage, but it'll be a good test of the ratings this race. We'll see. So I think he's still fairly handicapped. I think he's better handicapped than Time Hill, to be honest. I think Brian Carver's going to take another couple of pounds off his back as well. There's not a lot of pace in the race. The rain won't bother him, and he's trained by the right man. So I just think he's a potentially very good value bet here. And as we said earlier, he could be one to get out on in running if that's your thing. So yeah, I'll go with Sir Psycho.
You'd play in the place market as well. Would it be even stakes across both markets?
Probably. Yeah, no, I'd go even. Yeah, I do like him. Yeah, I do like him, to be fair. I'd have a straight up even, straight up bet on each market, and maybe just get your stake back maybe at about 7 or 8 to 1 in the in-running market and see how we go. Maybe something like that.
That's Sir Psycho in the Greatwood. Adele, your best bet for the weekend?
Are we staying at Cheltenham, or are we allowed to go elsewhere?
I think it's a weekend best bet, and you can go elsewhere because you've had great success in doing so.
I'm going to bring you to Wetherby then, which is where I'm going to be on Saturday. There's a horse running there called Hooligan. Well named. I'm hoping not. Hoping he's a saint. He runs in the 2:23, a bit of an odd time there. Won on his first start over hurdles at Warwick, despite being green. Beaten unbeaten rival that day. Was a massive eye catcher. So goes to Wetherby, and I think is well respected to make it back-to-back wins. Not sure on the price though. I think there might be an even money favourite in there with Donn McClean, so I'm going to pose that one. I'm going to go for Hooligan. I thought it was quite impressive.
You got Mackenberg, who won nicely in there last time.
Mackenberg, yeah.
As did Hooligan. Yeah. I'd imagine it will be between those towards the top of the betting for that introductory hurdle. But no price yet for Hooligan, but you've done very well when you've gone around the grounds before. So I'm liking the 2:23 at Wetherby. James Byrne and Tom George combining. And I'm going to go. There's not one absolute standout for me, but if I could only back one, it'd probably be Slate House in the Paddy Power Gold Cup at 10.0. I think that's a very fair price, and it would be more of a win bet than anything else personally for Slate House as my weekend best bet. We got there in the hour as well. Lovely stuff. Thanks all. An absolute pleasure. Don, that was it. For the podcast viewers, you missed a Donn McClean wink there. That was very good.
You didn't get my bet yet, Tom.
Don! Don, your weekend best bet. I'm so sorry, Don.
You're right, Tom. Just absolutely ignore it. Yeah,
no. It was worth it for the wink, if nothing else. What's your weekend best bet, Don? What's your weekend best bet?
I was trying to think, is it going to be goal on fortune or put the kettle on? I think I'll stick with put the kettle on. I just think
been one of mine.
She's short enough, but I think she's still underrated. I think on soft ground she'll get out into a nice rhythm in front. Her Arkle run is still underrated, and she gets the mares allowance. She doesn't have much to find on rating. So yeah, I think, and there's big racing at Punchestown as well, which you didn't mention. We've got latest exhibition running in the Florida Pearl Chase. Sandwell versus Abacadabra is probably in the Morgiana Hurdle. Felix Tej, our star in the Craddockstown Chase. So yeah, big weekend ahead.
And the golf.
And the golf.
And the golf. Just whilst you mentioned the Morgiana, the only thing I want to do there is say Sandwell was Sam Turner's horse to follow, hurdler to follow this year. He runs in the Morgiana, round about an even money shot currently for that. And we might also see Farouk Daleen this weekend as well. So he was mine to follow. So just keep those in mind as well. You can still catch up with that Matchbook National Hunt Horses to Follow podcast. It's out there if you want to do so. Plenty of run and won already. That's it. I haven't missed anyone for anything else.
Now we got there.
Now we can go. And thank you for the seamless re-entry of weekend best bets from the man behind the scenes. That was just, nobody will notice. It was brilliant. Adele, Declan, Don, thank you very much indeed. And thanks to those of you for watching and listening, however you've done so. Good luck this weekend. Bye-bye.